Hey there, and welcome to That News You Care About. I am your host, Logan Wilkinson, and this is going to be a very different, probably much shorter podcast and discussion this week. I am joined by Trevor Starkey. Trevor, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, it's we
Yeah.
we we had a very interesting introduction to this week's That Nerdy Site show too, where
Mm-hmm.
to address kind of the stuff we're gonna tackle here, and I
Mm-hmm.
very much kind of went into it with the same kind of like I don't quite know how to start this, but let's just dive on in, I guess.
Yeah, the thing to really discuss is kind of the wave of abuse, kind of abusers and sexual predators and just bullies and harassers and everything in general kind of being publicly outed by incredible survivors all throughout the week in the past 4 or 5 days now, I guess we are, when we're recording this on Monday. But the one that we're going to talk about to start with, and probably for the most of the episode, is the chunk of the crew over at Irrational Passions, where I obviously used to write and was a senior editor, coming forward with their own statements on my time at Irrational Passions, and in particular my time with one of the other contributing editors at the site. And so I just kind of want to tackle that head on. It's something that was important to me, important to Trevor, and begin it with the simplest possible expression of I'm sorry, in the most clear-cut, black and white terms possible. I am sorry. I failed in my role as a senior editor for sure, but more than that, as a colleague and as a friend to Quinn and to Jess and to George and to Jarrett and Scott, Mike, Alex, everyone at Irrational Passions. To the friends in the community and the industry and beyond, all the supporters we had, anyone I ever came across in my time, both at IP or now after with That Nerdy, I'm sorry. There's no good explanation for why you bully someone, why you kind of can be verbally harassing someone. There's no good explanation. There's none. It doesn't matter what kind of mood you're in, what kind of thought process you're in, how you're feeling that day. None of them are valid excuses, and I own up to that. I helped to create a toxic atmosphere in my time at Irrational Passions. I helped to create a toxic atmosphere for Quinn in particular, and I apologize for that. I just think people don't apologize enough. They don't ever really say when they're wrong, and I was wrong in the most blunt terms possible. I was wrong, and I'm sorry for that. It is something that I look back on, and yeah, I mean, it's been 10 months since I left Irrational Passions, and I think back on it now with such disappointment in myself. Over those 3 years that I knew Quinn, our relationship deteriorated. It kind of spiraled away, and I think as someone who certainly viewed Quinn as a younger brother at times, and viewed him as someone who I did respect and I did value his thoughts and criticisms and opinions. I put forth an impossible bar for him to reach. I put forth impossible standards. I mean, I made his life hard. I mean, hellish at times. And there's no excuse for that. And I'm sorry for that. And one of the things that I think is important to me is the idea that, that just in general within my life, I've always tried to pride myself on and believing in is this idea of people never growing complacent, never stopping, right? Like always keep trying to grow and evolve and be better. And yeah, I mean, I'm I've tried, right? And I failed pretty spectacularly in key moments like this one. Um, but I try to learn, right? Like I think the most important lesson for this weekend is both one to listen to others and actually have an empathetic, caring, I think, ear to what those around you are saying about yourself, about others, about people you may be friends with, um, you may work with, anything you may just have associated with once or twice, but listen to what they have to say about others, listen to what they have to say about their own situation and their own experiences. Don't be so quick to anger, um, and don't be so defensive. It can be hard to hear the worst parts of you talked about and brought up by people that you respect and that you love and that you kind of look up to, but you have to be willing to listen to that criticism. You have to be willing to listen to those critiques. You have to be willing to listen to when they're telling you that you're going off course, um, and that you're becoming something that you don't want to be. Um, because if you don't, you just barrel down a path and go off the rails, and you just leave a path of hurt and harm and pain behind you. And the other thing is, this industry is filled with abusers and predators and people who've caused pain, but the big takeaway for me, and I'm sure Trevor as well this weekend, is this industry is also filled with incredibly brave and strong people as well. And them using their voices and them using their actions and them joining together to demand a better industry and demand a better place for people of all walks of life, has been incredible to watch. And I support each and every one of them, as I'm sure Trevor does. One of the last things I want to touch on, and then I feel like where I also will bring Trevor in, is how we at That Nerdy end so many of our episodes, so many of our podcasts, so many of our conversations and discussions, which is with a simple phrase of stay nerdy and be good to each other. And Trevor, in classic Trevor Starkey fashion, had a far more succinct and brilliant way to put it than I will try to butcher it now, but he had a very good tweet that I urge you all to go read, and it echoes my thoughts on this, which is, we don't always, and I don't always, as Logan Wilkinson, hit that mark. I fail constantly in that mark at times, and that's part of being human, and it's part of my own shortcomings and failings and flaws. But I do try to examine, I do try to look at myself, I do try to be better, and I think that I urge everyone who's listening, everyone who's not listening, who's ever read or listened or watched anything that I've done or Trevor has done or anybody at That Nerdy Side has done or Irrational Passions or anywhere in the industry, to push to be better and to demand better from those around them. And I think I have let a lot of people down. I failed a lot of people. I failed myself. But I will be better. I will strive every day to be better. I will strive every day to listen more, to speak less, to be guided and urged on and empowered by the strength of others and the inspiration of others and the collective spirit of so many people that we've met across this industry and outside of it, to demand justice, to demand equality, to demand a more compassionate, brave and equitable industry and world, and we're not there yet. And I am not there yet, very obviously. But every day that we fail, we just have to be better, and hopefully every time we will be. Trevor, I know you have thoughts as well, I'm sure, and comments to make, but that's what I'll say as an opening.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll I'll echo some of the sentiments that I shared in this week's That Nerdy Site show, in that and some of the stuff that I'd kind of posted online in response to a lot of this as well. I knew, both from talking to you, as well as when the three, you, me, and Quinn, all hosted a West Wing podcast together, West Wing in it, for I don't know, what would that been, like 6 months maybe.
Yeah.
However long we did that as a weekly thing. I knew that there were tensions between you and Quinn. The thing that was news to me this week was kind of the extent of those tensions, and the Quinn's kind of feeling of abuse and harassment, because largely, especially after West Wing and it kind of folded, I would only really hear about, bits and pieces of Irrational Passions from talking through you. So I was really only getting your perspective on things, and I think we all fall victim to this, either consciously or subconsciously, in that, like, when we relay a story, we might relay ourselves in a slightly better light, or we might kind of paint we paint the story to make ourselves the hero of our own stories, and I know I'm guilty of that plenty of times, in kind of my past, and when I recount certain things, I'm like, I don't want to tell you this thing because it makes me look bad, so I'm just going to leave this detail out or something like that, and I'm sure there was an element of that was happening in those cases. So, so upon kind of learning all this stuff over the weekend, I reached out to everybody at Irrational Passions, everybody involved, including Jess, who is no longer at Irrational Passions, but she's over at Uppercut, but she was at IP at the time of all this was going down, and I kind of just reached out to everybody with a sentiment of like, hey, I knew there were issues here. I didn't realize they were this bad. I'm sorry if me, inviting Logan to work on That Nerdy Site with me, or kind of our, especially, when all of us were at PAX a few months ago, if there was any kind of unintended malice or something, if anybody perceived, That Nerdy Site team trying to hang out and spend time with the Irrational Passions team, I'd never intended that to be a negative experience for them. I didn't realize how deep-rooted maybe some of the pain and the residual hurt was still between Logan and some of the members of Irrational Passions. So I personally reached out to everybody there. I heard back from almost everybody at their team, and I echo what I said on Twitter. I thank those that spoke up and spoke out about this for bringing it to our attention, bringing it to my attention, and holding Logan accountable for this, and we kind of we sat down as a team at That Nerdy Site later that day. As many of us as we could get together. There were some people that couldn't make the call, but I've basically invited everybody at That Nerdy Site to please reach out to me if they have concerns or issues with, our interpersonal dynamics within our team. Fortunately, I think we have not encountered a lot of those same issues at That Nerdy Site. We have, a very different dynamic of characters, and some of the people are like doing their own thing and don't really interact with the rest of the team at all anyway. So we're kind of in a place that I think we recognize that, one of the things that came up was, if all this had come out 10 months ago, and we immediately jumped in and we're trying to start That Nerdy Site, maybe some people would or wouldn't have joined the site as a result, or wanted to work with Logan as a result. But we've I think we've all seen Logan trying to grow and be better and be
Mm.
more positive, and he does have a good support network kind of helping
Mm.
him through a lot of
Yes.
these times, and helping him um, not fall into these mistakes of the past.
Hmm.
Um, so in that mindset, the plan is to kind of keep the team as is, without kind of any drastic shakeups. But I have and Logan has echoed this himself. If
Hmm.
anybody does if anybody on our team has issues or concerns with kind of continuing on with this, we will absolutely reevaluate
Hmm.
that kind of moving forward. In the very short term, Logan and I were speaking right before we started recording. I'm going to take point on the Last of Us Part 2 review that
Hmm.
originally had been assigned to Logan, just so kind of it's not being caught up in all of this. Um, and we'll kind of that's like a very short term thing, and as it said on Twitter as well, I'm going to be much more mindful when I reach out to friends that want to collaborate, and if people have reservations of being on shows with certain people, I'm absolutely going to respect that as well. So this is absolutely a learning experience for all of us, and I've kind of had that back and forth with many of the people I was communicating with over the last few days. Is this is very uncharted territory, especially on a small site like ours or something like that. And but the thing we want most important is that our team and our audience feel safe, and that nerdy site is a safe place to kind of communicate with friends and visit and support. And if that ever changes, I'm always available, and I encourage anybody to kind of reach out and express what they have, and I'll try and address any issues that arise as a result, both internally or externally, for any of our listeners out there.
I think for me, and I echo Trevor's thoughts completely, is the aspect of this is not for me a podcast about there it is, washed my hands off, made an apology, and now we're done, and I expect total forgiveness. Forgiveness and trust are things that are earned over time, and I I plan to work every day to earn trust back and to earn that faith back and to earn that forgiveness. And it may never come for some people, and that is a thing that I will have to accept. That is a cross I will kind of bear, and I'm okay with that. It is not for me to expect or demand forgiveness or trust. And like Trevor said, I have just the absolute most amazing support system around me, who have helped make me better every day, who've brought out the best qualities of me, brought out the best parts of me, and helped to kind of show me the parts that are less flat and show me the parts that are more um, self-destructive and toxic. And that begins obviously with Trevor right across kind of the mic for me, but down to numerous members of that nerdy staff, former members from Irrational Passions, people within the industry as a whole and outside of it. Obviously, I'm blessed with so many people who love and support me and want to see me succeed and want to see me be the version that they believe I can be. And so I will work every single day to be that version. I will work every day to reach that goal, and it is one that is a marathon and not a sprint. And I'm aware of that. I understand that. And so I will say yet again, to go back to another point, to stay nerdy and to be good to each other, to help create a community. Yes, that nerdy site, but far bigger. That is safe. That is supportive. That has a deep-seated passion to see the world be better, to call out instances of abuse, to call out instances of predators, or harassment, or assault, or whatever it might be, to hold those who failed to meet those standards accountable for their actions, and to constantly push forward and constantly push one another to be better, to be good to one another. And being good to one another doesn't just mean accepting each other, flaws and all. It means pushing one another to be better, to be good people, to be a supportive person and a supportive group and a supportive community, and to have no place for hate. And that is something that we at That Nerdy over these last 10 months have tried to strive for. When we have failed, I apologize, but we will not make the same mistakes again. I will not make the same mistakes again. And all we can do, and all I can do, is to try to learn the lessons that I've been shown, try to follow the example that I've been shown, and yeah, to be better every day. So that is my last thoughts. Trevor, if you have nothing else to say, then that'll be it. Stay nerdy and be good to each other.